am excited to be sharing with you another So What success story. Today, I am here with my friend Toni Boland-Evans, and Toni is a social and community impact manager for Nike, and she's also on the University of Memphis National Alumni Association Board of Directors with me. I've known Toni since my days at the Grizzlies, so back in like 2001 or 2 or something like that, we met, and I'm really excited because just over these last couple of years, I've really gotten a chance to get to know Toni a little bit better, and now you get to. So Toni, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I moved to Memphis when I was 8, proud alum of the University of Memphis, and I started working for Nike 25 years ago. I'll celebrate my 25th anniversary in June.
Wow.
So I started when I was 10, though.
Of course you did. Of course you did. Well, Toni, you have an amazing story. So I'm excited to get into the stories. In this program, I like to talk about what I call the So What success system. And that's learning how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, calculate choices so that you can achieve so what success. And that success over any obstacles you face. So talk to us a little bit about some of the obstacles you've overcome, what those obstacles were and how you overcame them.
Sure. So, actually, I was at the University of Memphis. I got really sick, and I remember not knowing what was going on. But initially I had chalked it up to, I'm in college, I'm taking a full load, I'm working, all sorts of things. And then one day I realized, this is more than just that. And so I ended actually up in the emergency room. And and I found out, I spent a week in the hospital, and I found out that my body didn't like my liver and was rejecting it. So I was diagnosed with a condition called autoimmune hepatitis, meaning my body just rejected my liver. And so at 19, I was told that one day I would need a transplant. And so I went on with my life, always knowing I've been on so many medicines for all of my life. And, I was diligent in doing the right thing and, didn't think much about it. So then let's just say end of 2013. So I went to college, graduated, started working,
That had to be so scary though, Toni.
Well, it was so definitely scary. And it's, you never know when that one day is going to be,
right.
And I chose to kind of live my life as, well, that day will come. And when that day comes, we'll deal with it.
Deal with it then, huh?
Deal with it. I mean, because there's nothing I could have, it ended up being 20 years. So and it did in the back of my head, it was always present, every morning as I took, a handful of medicine, it was like, it's a daily constant reminder, but it's, I chose not to let it really kind of consume my day-to-day because that wasn't going to be productive. It wasn't going to make anything change.
Right.
There was no one. We didn't know why it happened. Why did my body choose to do it? What was it at that moment that triggered it? They knew how to slow down the progression, but not necessarily how to cure it. Okay. So it's kind of, and let me let you know, I did a lot of research. I ended up actually at the Mayo Clinic, going to the person who I actually saw the doctor who had done all this research of my particular condition, because my particular condition isn't even, it's a small percentage of the population. So it's not like 1 in 10, it's like 1 in, I don't even know, 1 in 100,000 people. So it's not even, and to be honest with you, I've never even met someone who has my condition.
Oh, wow.
So I do know of someone, but I have not in person met them. So anyway, so I go on with my life. And then in 2013, again, I started getting really sick, and I ended up in the emergency room again a couple of nights. And while I waited to get into my doctor and couldn't get into my doctor. And finally, I ended up, actually, I had a normally scheduled appointment with my pulmonologist because I have asthma as well. And I went in and he shared with me that the reason I was feeling so bad is that my lungs were filled with fluid, and that I needed to get that fixed. And so, because that's why I couldn't breathe, and that's why I felt so horrible. And so I ended up getting into my liver doctor the week after for a normally scheduled appointment. And he basically said, when this is the piece that means that there's nothing else that we can do. Your meds are no longer controlling your condition, and there are no other alternatives. And you're going to have to start the process of getting listed for a transplant. So, and then the reality sets in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does that mean? When will that happen? Will I be able to get an organ in time? And the answers to those questions are, we don't have answers. And then there's also a fine line between being too sick and not sick enough, if that makes sense. And so you can't be too sick, but you have to be sick enough.
Right, I get it.
And so I spent, the second part of 2014 and the beginning of 2015, just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. I got listed the beginning of 2015, in I guess January, February, and we just started the waiting process. Things were changing. I was so the reason my lungs were filled with fluid is that, similar to how your heart, when you're having heart issues, you get fluid around your heart. Well, the same thing was happening with my liver, and that it was seeping into my lung.
Wow.
And so I was having to go in weekly to have that removed, which is not a pleasant process, and requires a lot of needles, which was not fun.
That sounds horrible, Toni.
So overcoming an obstacle, overcoming my fear of needles. Now it's kind of like it's a needle, it's not a big deal, but
it's about perspective, isn't it?
It's about perspective. It's like, okay, this is going to help me, but it was like, ooh. And so we went through 2015. I really struggled because I was, to the point, I was getting sicker. However, we didn't know if I was going to be able to find a match. And so I encourage everybody to register to be a donor because there are so many people who do wait, who are on the waiting list waiting for
organs. That's what I was going to ask you. How long were you on the waiting list, Toni?
So, well, in theory, I guess 9 months. So I remember, this is really kind of funny, and I'm a blessed and fortunate one that that happened, that it only took 9 months, because there are people who have been on the list much longer. And so in hindsight, the Friday weekly, I had to go in for lab work to find out where I stood on the list locally for our region. And so, every Monday I would go in, and Tuesday they'd say, well, you're number 1 or 2 or 3, and you're a blood type on the list. I was 1, 2, or 3 for a long time and never got the call. And you just sort of, it gets frustrating because it's like, and some weeks I felt better than others. And I just knew it was getting difficult. And so my weekly labs on that Monday showed that I had really low potassium, and which can cause heart issues. So they increased my potassium intake, went back in for labs on Wednesday. They were still super low. Friday morning, went in for more labs, increased the potassium, went in for more labs on Friday morning. And the nurse called me and said, Toni, nothing's been working. You need to go to the emergency room. Me and the emergency room, we've become really close friends.
Wow, you can have that friend, Toni.
Emergency rooms. Anyway, so I go into the emergency room that Friday, and I ended up needing a potassium and a magnesium transfusion. And that took pretty much all night. And then Saturday, I went around, went on with my day. I remember we went to dinner at the Bayou, actually. So, and went home. And, I was usually in bed between 7 and 8, and I felt like such an old person. But that's how, just living life, and I was still working full time. So no excuses. So even on that Friday, I was still at work. And then Sunday night around 8 o'clock, I was already asleep and my phone rang apparently, and I didn't hear it. My husband's phone rang and he woke me up, and I looked over at him like, why are you waking me up? Right. And he's like, it's them. I'm like, who? And he goes, it's Transplant. And they had a match. And so they went through a couple of questions and then said, are you interested? Basically. Like, do people really tell you no? And so we packed up. We had to go back. We had to go back, kind of like being pregnant.
Like being pregnant, yeah.
It was so funny. I had to go back, and it was funny because they said, you've got 2 hours to be here. My transplant was scheduled for Monday morning, and me, I'm like, okay, let's go. And my husband's like, why don't you take a breath? Why don't you go take a shower? Wash your hair, because you don't know when that'll happen again. I'm glad he was kind of level-headed because I didn't think about any of that sort of stuff. And he, he was the smart one in that. And I'm so glad he told me to wash my hair. So similar to today, this is the week that we've had low water pressure and I hadn't washed my hair. And I actually finally this morning got up and washed my hair, and it was the most glorious feeling.
I understand.
It was such a joy. So I washed my hair and we went to the hospital and I checked in. It was funny. I sent everyone home, and it was an interesting thing. So when you talk about overcoming, there are people who are on your journey as well. And I told them, I said, I'm going to be sleeping the next couple of days. Y'all aren't. So why don't y'all go home and get some rest and just meet me in the morning. And so my mom and my husband went home that night, and I was in the room by myself. And it was, I did a lot of thought, journaled a lot, prayed a lot. But, I felt as though, if it is, and I don't mean this to sound just kind of hokey, but it's like, if this is meant to be, this is meant to be today.
Right.
And it's in God's hands. So I wasn't stressed. I wasn't worried. I didn't sleep. But
you were thinking and reflecting and
yeah, it's like, and honestly, it's people ask all the time, if you found out tomorrow was your last day, what would you do differently? And it was it really was that moment, because tomorrow was not promised. And, so it was, I was very content. I was very at peace with everything. And so the next morning they moved up my surgery. My mom wasn't able to make it before, which I still have not heard the last of. My husband was able to see me before they wheeled me in. And, I was blessed and got my transplant. I had lots of issues afterwards, went into rejection. So, which was really scary when you're in that moment and you know it's bad. And I remember my surgeon coming and sitting on the edge of the bed, and he's like, Toni, we've got you. We've got plan A, plan B, plan C. And if these things don't work, we'll figure out D, E, and F. And there were, it was in his hands. And so thankfully they were able to get everything under control. And 2 weeks later, I walked out of the hospital. And so, so overcoming, every day, I'm going to get emotional, sorry. Because even all these years later.
Okay. Because this is your life, Toni, and I appreciate you sharing this.
It's like live every day, because I think I looked it up the other day. It's like 3,000 something days since my transplant. Or maybe not that many. Anyway, 5 years, 362,000 days. And these are, I call them my bonus days. These were not promised to me. This is my blessing. And I need to live each day because it was not promised, and to live my best life, and to do right by others, and to do what I can for my community, for my family, for my friends. and I hope that, that has really been not that that's not what I did before, if you will, that's always been who I am, but it's just, a daily when I, at the end of the day, it's like, I hope I made a difference today.
Yeah.
And I truly do mean that. There's a quote that someone once told me, live like your donor is watching, and not in a creepy way, but I did have a cadaver donor. And so, someone's life ended, and it's my responsibility to then, not take on, but to live my life and be the best me, and take care of me, and do the right thing, because it was truly a blessing. So
hearing your story, it makes me think about, how many of us take our health for granted, right?
Yeah.
So I've had obstacles in my life, but I'm really grateful my health has not been one. I did have a scare with Bell's palsy that really woke me up. But just in general, I've been really, really grateful. And I shared with you before that I had a friend who dealt with kidney issues since we were in high school. And so I saw her journey, and watching her and the challenges that she's had has really made me grateful for my health. And I appreciate you sharing your story, because this is something that we all need to hear, because just because this is you and what you've gone through, it doesn't mean that I won't experience it in the future, or someone that I love or someone that I care for won't experience it as well. And I just want to add another plug to what you said before about being donors, that we never know when our life or the lives of someone we know can bless someone else who's in need.
Exactly.
So the next part of the So What Success system is eliminating excuses. And you talked about that a little bit already, because you were going to work and nobody knew what you were going through. Nobody knew what you were dealing with. You just kept pushing forward. So talk about how you eliminated excuses and so that you could still be successful.
Yeah, so it's so interesting. There were very few people at work who knew I was even waiting. I obviously had to tell a small group of people, because in theory, the call could come any day, as it did. And, my work was going to need to be covered. And I literally was at work Friday before my transplant on Monday, and actually called my boss that Sunday and said, hey, I got the call, yay. But there's a large percentage of times you get the call and it doesn't actually happen for a variety of reasons. And so if it ends up I don't get it, I'll be in the office, right? Who does that? I mean, really? But it was, for me, I wanted things to be as normal as could be. It was an obstacle, but I still wanted to work. I still wanted to be a productive member of society. I could have easily curled up and just said, I'll just wait. And even after my transplant, I was ready to get back to a normal life, or whatever that looked like.
I understand.
And it was, so I was out, I had my transplant in August, and I was back at work in December. In hindsight, I probably should have taken a little longer. But I was just ready to live, and not that I wasn't living, but it's like,
no, I totally get it.
Let me get back to my normal life. And, it is still, sometimes it's a challenge. I've had some bouts of rejection of late.
Have
trying
you?
Trying to figure things out, but it's, still showing up for work every day, still trying to do the right thing.
Still serving on board, still go get
just trying to, I try not to let things, there are times where, I'm like, I'm really too tired to do that. And I've learned that, yes, sometimes it's okay to say that, and that I don't have to do everything. And it's okay to say no. But I try not to let that be the mantra of my life.
Right.
I'm good. If I can, I'm probably going to do it. Much to everyone's, my family's like, really? But it's just
you have to do what keeps you going, what makes you feel good, what keeps you alive, what makes you feel worthwhile. And I get it. I totally get it. And finding the right balance in that.
Yeah.
Well, the next part of the SOA success system is calculating choices. So it's
Yeah.
overcoming obstacles, eliminating excuses, and calculating choices. What are some of the calculated choices you had to make in your life, with your health, and even in your career, so that
Yeah.
you could be successful?
Yes. So there's so many facets to that. Because knowing since I was 19, having health issues, obviously finding work I'm passionate about and work that keeps me going, um, that has health insurance. Uh, um,
Right.
I mean, let's just be honest,
Yes.
was really important. And just making choices that, okay, this is going to be for my betterment. I know, I've worked for smaller organizations when I was 8 or 9.
That's what I was like when you were like 5, right?
When I was 5, where I was challenged with having health insurance, not having health insurance, and there were consequences for that. So making sure that I'm making choices that are in my best interest. I can't, I can't drink anymore. Not that I was really a drinker before, but wine nights or bourbon
Yeah,
nights,
I wondered about that.
yeah, choices I make. I'm a great designated driver. There are
Looking at the positives, right?
yeah, hey, I'm all, and it's funny because people are like, oh, I won't drink in front of you. I'm like, that it doesn't bother me that if people drink. I mean, drinking isn't what led me to my issue. So I'm like, please, if it brings you joy, do it. I do sometimes, sometimes just the aroma of a good wine, kind of satisfies the craving, but it's, so those are choices and calculated choices, because in
Sure.
theory, is anyone going to know if I have, this, but I know that's not right for me.
Right, right.
And so, yeah, so there are calculated choices every day.
Yeah.
With my health, especially, it's like, I know I need to drink more water. And, if I don't, there are consequences, or, so every day,
Every day.
every day. And it's not, so I don't want it to sound so dramatic, like, but you get into the routine and you have to know what's right for you as an individual and what's going to lead you. I want to live every day. I want to live 2,000, 5,000, 20,000 more days. What do I need to do in order to accomplish that? So
Right.
you
And
make the
make those
choices
choices every day.
every day. And sometimes you make good choices and sometimes you make bad choices. We all do that. And not getting caught up if I do make a bad choice, whatever that may look like, you can't dwell in it. It's like tomorrow is another day.
Exactly. Make another choice.
Make another, you have the choice to make a different one tomorrow.
Yes, I love that. Well, with the SOA success system, in my opinion, putting all those things together, you learn how to overcome the obstacles in your life and eliminate the excuses, and don't get hung up on what's happening to me and why is this happening to me and this isn't fair. And you just move forward and make calculated choices. You can be successful despite any challenges you face in your life. And Toni, you've definitely proven that. But I have a question for you. How do you personally define success?
Oh, personally define success. I want to just piggyback on what you said. Throughout everything, there were a lot of moments where, why me? Why is this happening to me? Everybody has those moments.
Absolutely.
However, why not me? It's why. So what is success? So if me, then what am I going to do with it? So defining success is, am I living my best life? Do I go to bed every night and feel that I have made a difference? Whatever that looks like for the day. Did I show up as my best, most authentic self? And today is one of those days I'm showing up as truly authentic.
And I love it, Toni.
This is the unfiltered version. And so, but that is what success is. And being comfortable in that.
Yeah.
Success is showing up sometimes. And making sure, identifying those things that you want to accomplish in life, or how you want to feel at the end of the day. Because it may, not everybody's job may be, fulfilling, but if that's your job, are you showing up every day and showing up as your best you and doing the best job you can? no matter what that is.
Yeah.
And being there and making the best choices for my family, for my friends, for the organizations I work with. How can I enrich and how can I better the world?
I
That's
love it,
exactly.
Toni. I
So,
love it.
and why not me? You
And so,
know?
yeah, I was going to go back to that, the why not me, because I definitely was a why me person when my situation happened to me when I got pregnant when I was 15 by someone I didn't know. And it definitely felt unfair.
Yeah.
But you also said that why not me? And then what are you going to do with it?
Yep.
What are you going to do with it? And that's what I'm doing. I'm doing something with my life. I'm doing something with my story. And I appreciate you sharing your story because I know it's going to help a lot of people. It's going to help a lot of people in a lot of different ways. It's one thing I've definitely found about sharing our stories is we might think we know how it's going to help people. But it ended up touching people in so many different ways for so many different reasons. I have one closing question for, oh, did you have something else?
Yeah, I was going to say, and people, when you meet people, you don't know their story. And then being able to get to know someone through their stories and through their life experiences just gives you a greater understanding and appreciation for everyone that you encounter. And you should always, I feel as though you should always take every encounter with people as what can I learn from this situation?
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's a lesson and sometimes it's a lesson in how you don't want to be, because those are, and that in and of itself is a lesson. So
it is a lesson, it's a gift, and it's a blessing to me. Just like you said, I mean, I totally agree with that. Sometimes it's learning how to be, and sometimes learning how you don't want to be. It's a blessing to you, and it can make you a better person. It can make you, like I said before, making you appreciate your own life or certain aspects of your life even more. But I love hearing people's stories and sharing people's stories, because we are all, and my tagline, my email for a decade has been, we're in this together. And then COVID came and now everybody's saying that. But the truth of the matter is we've always been in this together. We've always, and our stories are all intertwined and interconnected, and we can help each other by sharing our stories. The one last question I was going to ask you, or I'm going to ask you, is advice. What advice would you give to someone who is dealing with obstacles, dealing with challenges, and they want to be successful, and however they define success? What advice would you give?
What change are you going to make each and every day to accomplish what it is that you want to do? And sometimes they're small changes. Sometimes it's even just a shift of mindset. But always be open to trying something different. If you continue to do the same thing every day and wonder why things aren't changing, maybe it's the approach. And being able to absorb everything, and again, take every opportunity and every interaction as a learning opportunity. Again, even those negative ones, and especially during these times over the past year, there's been such negativity, but being able to learn from that and educate yourself and see how you can make a change so that you, your family, the people around you can advance in the way they think about things or they perceive things. So it's, advice, just continue to make small changes every day to reach whatever your goal is, because it is those small changes that add up, that do, one day you wake up and it's like, oh, here I am, and it's like all the things you worried about and that whole journey, sometimes you don't even realize you're on the journey. And it's like one day you're like, wow. And those are the moments that that are pretty special and pretty amazing. So learn every day, take every opportunity to experience all that life has, and make a small change every day to get you closer to your goal.
I love it, Toni. Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you.
It was beautiful. I thank you again. One step at a time.
It's my privilege.
One day at a time. And thanks for sharing your beautiful story.
Thank you kindly. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for sharing them.
And thank you. And I want to thank you too, just finally for being your authentic self, because
raw and authentic. That's what
I love it. And that's what So What is about, being real
Yeah.
and authentic.
Yeah.
And I thank you. I thank you so much.
My honor, my privilege.